Hello everyone, welcome one and all. This is presented by Red On Sports and you are on the Gralloch Ultra. So, what is the Gralloch Ultra? Well, tonight we're going to go into all the bits and bobs, the meat and the two-veg of everything that we need to know about this event. This is a new event on the calendar for 2026. But what is it? So, tonight we're going to discuss an introduction to what the Gralloch Ultra actually is. We'll then have our panel, they'll come on board and we'll talk about mindset, the mental side of going long. We'll then talk about training, preparing your body for an ultra, and of course, the kit and the setup that you will need to keep you moving. More importantly than most of that, we'll go into great detail about the support and the safety and how the Gralloch will keep you safe. And at the very, very end, we'll also have a Q&A session. So please, if you have got any questions, do feel free to pop them down in the chat below and we'll do our best to cover all them off at the end of this webinar. My name is James McCallum. I'll be the host for tonight. I'm a former professional bike racer on road and track, and then transitioned across to off-road racing around about 2014, 2015. And I've had plenty of duels with one of our guests, Rich Rothwell. Many a 24-hour mountain bike event over the past 10 or so years. But first person I would like to throw across to is Malcolm Smith. And Malcolm is one of the co-founders of Red On Sports. Malcolm, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Great, thanks, Jimmy. Hi there. My name is Malcolm Smith, co-founder of Red On Sports, along with Max Vussler. I've been in sports marketing now for about 14, 15 years, following a career in the pharmaceutical industry, procurement, supply chain, materials management, and then consulting in that sort of stuff. My real passion has always been sports, and I suppose sports marketing as well, and got the opportunity to get into that space in 2014 when I acquired the license for the UCI Grand Fondo World Series for the UK, which we ran as the Tour of Cambridgeshire, a big road cycling event. And then that led to us running the UCI Grand Fondo World Championships as part of Glasgow 2023. And about that time, we'd formed Red On Sports, and we're getting full on into gravel racing, specifically with the Gralloch, and we've been developing that. So that's myself, Max, and the team ever since. And by way of a sporting background, I can't claim to have Jimmy's Palmares. I was an injured runner in my teenage years, and then not a very good third cap road racing cyclist, and then latterly as an age grouper, I always had an aspiration that was far greater than my physical ability. So I'm handing over, I think, then back to you, Jimmy, or to one of the other panelists.
Yeah, we'll get straight into it. Our other three panelists. We'll start off with Zoe. Zoe, can you introduce yourself, please?
So my name's Zoe McIntosh. I'm originally from Wales, currently living in London, but I basically started cycling from when I was a very young girl. My dad forced me to ride a bike to commute whilst all my friends were getting lifts and driving cars, which has built me to become quite a strong cyclist now. And I took the dive into gravel racing and ultras only the start of last year, but work, more broadly in the cycling industry and giving it a good shot this year. And that's me.
And I believe you're ready for a pretty special trip next week. Where are you heading off to next?
Yes, I'm off to the Atlas Mountain Race, to give it a good go as well, where it's going to be freezing cold and very interesting a trip. But looking forward to it and all packed for it.
I'm sure we all wish you the best of luck. We're now going to pop across to Tom Hill. Tom, a little intro, please, bud.
Yeah, I'm Tom Hill. I'm communications manager for eStrap. I'm one of those really lucky people that gets to work in the bike industry and loves riding bikes and gets to combine the two into one. So I don't know. It's either that every day feels like you're having fun, or actually even when you're riding your bike having fun, it feels like work, and it's somewhere in the middle sometimes. But I have done ultra races before and absolutely love them, and most other forms of cycling and riding over the years too. But I think I don't know. I've found a place where I love supporting other people, looking after our ambassadors, making sure they're having a good time, having great adventures, and then getting out by myself, but perhaps not racing anymore.
Brilliant. And last but definitely not least, the legend of many ultras. Many people will recognise this name, Mr. Rich Rothwell. Rich,
That was very grand. I've been riding bikes all my life, and I got into. I always enjoyed really long rides, and would you call it bike packing? I don't know, but going sleeping in ditches and bothies and all that kind of stuff many years ago. And then I started mountain bike marathon racing, which I really enjoyed. Got into the 24-hour race scene where I met Jimmy, and yeah, I had great times doing that. But the bike packing, ultra distance kind of boom got me, and yeah, that's where I kind of focus a lot of my efforts now in my own riding. It can be ultras of relatively short durations, or every so often go and do a really big one like Zoe's doing. I really enjoy those trips, but yeah, the short ones are good. I really enjoy them, and yeah, there's a lot I can take from kind of mountain bike marathon racing, 24-hour racing that apply to these kinds of what I would call shorter ultras. I'm also a level 3 coach, and I coach for advanced cycle coaching. Tend to have a client base of people who like to do long distances, because I suppose that's my kind of specialist area.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Rich. Now, this will now lead us into what actually is the Gralloch Ultra. Now, we know from the launch of the event what is actually entailed in this. Well, it's 330 kilometres, give or take 5,000 metres of climbing, and over 70% of the route will be on gravel tracks. There is a question sometimes that pops up that what actually qualifies as an ultra. For us, this may be a little bit shorter than many of you kind of feel that a true ultra is, but this offers something for the people who are new to ultras, but it also gives the more experienced riders the chance to really go at it and have a real proper good bike race at the front end of this event. So it's going to be really exciting from both ends of the spectrum, and we thought that we'd place this distance just right in the middle, where it's just enough for people who just want to really push themselves and experience that first ultra. We'll now look at some of the route. So, as always, as has been the home from the Gralloch in the last few years, as well as the Raiders as well, Gatehouse of Fleet is the beating heart of the Gralloch. It's the start and finish location, massive festival atmosphere. It's basically where the journey begins and ends. We'll then move on to the very famous, many of us will know this part, it's the Gralloch Classic, the Raiders Road. It's one of the staples of the UCI race, and it's also super fast gravel. We then move into the Forest Estate. Really nice rolling gravel roads here, good for building that rhythm, get settled into the ride, make some nice calm and steady progress here. It's really nice gravel, really nice terrain. We then move forward to North Kyle. Now this is a really beautiful and rugged landscape. It's really exposed. There's a major wind farm in there, but it's also a former coal mining site, so you get a big sense of scale and that real sort of raw environment. We then go to Lochdoon. It's this is quite a remote feeling kind of stretch. You get a real sense of isolation, that you're far away from home, but in reality, you're never that far from anywhere here. The landscape starts now to get really big and get really wild. And this is probably one of the moments where you start to mentally think about how you're going to handle that isolation part that you kind of feel you're on your own. But luckily enough, at this event, you never really go too far from a friend and a fellow bike rider. We then move on to Carrick Forest, long forest tracks, really quiet, consistent riding, a nice chance for you to focus on your pedaling, your momentum, and carrying as much speed as you can, and obviously enjoying the scenery. Loch Ricor, beautiful lochside riding, very calm, nice reflective, nice little bit for a brief mental reset, and really beautiful stillness in this landscape. It is a truly beautiful part of Scotland. We then go to Loch Trill, an absolutely iconic location. You've kind of Bruce's Stone there, massive historical landmarks, and a very memorable section. And of course, this leads us to Glen Trill. Quiet, peaceful, perfect place to be for golden hour for many of the riders. Some will be a night ride, some will be it's a nice dark sky park, beautifully clear nights, great for stargazing, and it's an absolutely classic Galloway scenery. And it's a very fitting finale to this whole route. There's a real sense here that this route taking in all of that gives you a real sense of what it feels like to do a proper ultra. You'll feel remote, but you won't be too remote at the same time. And that real feeling of riding through the night and experiencing that for the first time. I know the first time that I did that ever, and it's an amazing feeling. You sometimes feel like you're going about 1,000 miles an hour just in the trees, and it feels very, very visceral. So it's going to be a fantastic moment. The exact route, the actual final route, will be unveiled, obviously, in March. But the main thing to take away from this part of the conversation is that the cut-off point will be 25 hours. That's just to make sure that we get everyone in and get everyone safe. There have been, anecdotally, I've heard that there have been the odd ultra rider who's actually asked when the sportive starts the next day. They might just feel it nudging into that as well. So if you're big and you're bold, good luck with that. So do please, obviously, stay tuned to all of our social media channels and get on the emails as well, so you're first to hear about the further route updates and the official route map coming out. We now move on to what's included in the event entry. So as we say, this is a semi-supported event. You're not out there on your own. There's obviously no outside support allowed. You can't have your family around the route handing you up bags from supermarkets full of food. But help from fellow riders and obviously the event staff is A-OK. There will be multiple feed zones, full safety overnight, so you can basically focus on the road and survive. Fully GPS tracked, it'll be live tracked, so you can get your dot watchers keeping an eye on you as you make your progress. And obviously we'll have feed zones all the way through there. We've got 3 feed zones with real food, most of you will be happy to know, as well as plenty of sports nutrition, water refills, spares, basic tools, and there will be 2 indoor spaces at feed zone 2 and feed zone 3, with a wee option to get, if the weather's a bit inclement, to get out of the rain, get a little change, have a little rest, reset, and obviously have an option there to charge any of your devices. Medical support. There's a 100% dedicated medical support out there with ambulance and first aid teams. They'll be deployed all over the route with 24/7 contact via the event control. Rider assistance. If you need to stop or pull out, there's a 24/7 contact number, a direct line to the event control, and we'll be recover you. The rides will be recovered and brought back to Gatehouse of Fleet, obviously. There will be a nice hot finishers meal available when you finish, day or night, when you get back to the event. And obviously, we'll also be looking at having a bag drop from the start too. So any personal nutrition, spares, sleeping kit, if you need it, that can all be transported and that will be taken to feed 2. We do have secure luggage storage at the event village, so you can leave any spare kit with us. Ride as light as you want, or as light as you risk, probably is the better wording, and be worry-free with that. You will obviously, when you cross that line, get an amazing finisher's medal for the inaugural Gralloch Ultra, marking a huge, huge achievement. So the Gralloch Festival. It's not just an ultra, but you're part of this ultra is part of something which is even bigger. It's a weekend-long festival in Gatehouse of Fleet. Anyone who's been to the Gralloch UCI event will know just how amazing it is down there. And having the addition of this event just really sort of bookends the whole of the weekend. Once you come across the line, there'll be a massive welcoming party. There's chances to provide yourself with extra add-ons on the Friday evening. There's all-you-can-eat pasta, talks from ultra legends. There's loads of social and relaxing areas that you can chill out in. Grab yourself a beer, meet up with friends, and obviously that post-ride celebrations on Sunday at midday. And of course, when you're coming in, we'll be getting ready for the elite race to take part. So you'll be surrounded by some of the best UCI level gravel racers in the world, all looking to qualify for that world and European selection. There's also the Sportif, which will be happening at the same time. That's running on Sunday. Nice social pace option if you're still feeling good, or maybe your family wants to come down and take a little look at some of the route and experience what you've experienced. Obviously, live music, panel talks, and we'll have an expo and a demo as well, demo areas where we can see all the latest gravel kit, demo bikes and gear, and chat with the partners and the brands that we've got as partnerships with us. There's on-site camping, so you can stay close to the action, easy access to the village, and really set up your weekend base. Food and drink, there'll be street food and local vendors. Hot food is always going to be available, and of course, coffee, drinks to refuel, relax, and recover. There will be on Friday an optional pre-event shakeout ride to help loosen your legs, check your bike over, and just go over your setup before you embark on the ultra. And that is pretty much everything that you are going to get as soon as you arrive there. The first part of this actual chat now is going to look at the real bare bones of what's going to be required now for this event. So with that, we're going to talk about three things in particular. And the first one we're going to talk about is mindset and the sort of mental side of going long. And we thought the best person to start with this would be Zoe, because Zoe, you're pretty new to this whole world of Ultra. From your point of view, what are those first Ultra nerves like?
They're nerves, they exist, they're very natural to exist. Yeah, I guess so. When I first started racing, it was kind of the initial sign up was the biggest nerve-wracking thing. I think for me, it was that like initial declaration that I'm doing this, I've now paid, and I'm gonna have to go and line up with everyone else. And I think that was the initial nerve, and it always is. Like even with the race next week, I'm like, oh, who am I lining up against? And I've committed to this now, like everything's booked up to this moment. All I've got to do is ride my bike, which if we're all on this call, we're all more than capable to do. But yeah, I've definitely like learned through like mistakes and also last minute changes to bike setups. I would say I'm surrounded by an incredible like community of people, and that's what really Ultra is about. It's less about that. Well, I say it's less about the racing. Of course, it's about racing. It's on a race, but the kind of people who sign up to these events really make it. And for me, that's always the reason that I will sign up to specific races. The Land Between, which is Rich's race, I signed up to because also Rich is my coach. But the people who turn up to those events are so caring and they're just so excited for everyone. And like to see everyone at the finish line is actually what can keep you going for the most part. It's like actually returning and telling all the stories you've had, whether they're good, bad, awful, whatever. That's what it's about for me, as well as the race itself.
So that's the pre-event situation. What's it actually like doing your first Ultra? It's obviously going to be a roller coaster of emotions and energy and self-doubt, confidence, all of those things. What sort of things stood out for you when you did your first event?
I think bizarrely, I don't know if this is me personally, but I have this like, when I start riding my bike, all I can think about at that time is riding my bike. Like it's very much I numb out to the rest of the world, which is such a beautiful thing to be able to do. Like it is very much a body and mind experience to put in that effort to ride. So when I'm doing an Ultra, I usually do literally just focus on pedaling and like getting through. And if those like thoughts do come into my head, like, oh, this is really hard or this feels really uncomfortable, I kind of like go through a process now, which is like, have I put myself into this position? Yes, that was on me. Like, am I okay in the rest of my life? Yes, of course. Let me just keep going. It's all about just like breaking down those like boundaries that are within yourself to like keep moving forward.
Yeah, I suppose what you're saying there is really it's about just focusing on the moment right in front of you and not getting too far ahead of yourself, because that can really mess with you.
Yeah, I think so. And also I sign up to events where I know that the area around me is going to be beautiful. And it's like I'm always going to be like astounded by what's next. Like going up a hill, it might be bloody painful, but the views you get at the top and then that descent, it's all about just enjoying like what's around you as much as enjoying what your body can do in that moment.
Amazing. So we've talked about what it's like to have those nerves in that first event. Rich, kind of your experience, nerves, worries, how you get through low moments. What sort of tricks do you have up your psychological toolbox, so to speak?
Well, I was just listening to Zoe then, and the thought that came in my head was whether you're new to it or whether you're an old hand, nerves are a big part of it. I've never stood on a start line of something, whether it's been something that I've wanted to go really hard and fast and try and get a result, or if it's something that's physically daunting and it's huge, nerves for different reasons. I've never stood there and felt completely, and I think if you do, you're doing it wrong.
That's a problem. Yeah,
it's a problem. So if anybody does decide to do this as one of the first ones and they get all those like feelings of anxiety and nervousness and should I be doing this, that's totally normal. I think that's part of it. And I mean, you'll know this, Jimmy, from the psychology of being prepared. If you're not feeling nervous, it means you don't care, basically. So if you turn up and the nerves are going to be there, you've just got to go, I'm just going to take that first step and start. We've gone beyond the kind of signing up bit. It's the kind of actually getting that start line and going. And I always find, even in races that have intimidated me for whatever reason, that feeling of butterflies and nervousness, it's always going to be there. But literally within a few minutes, I'm like, what was I worrying about?
Yeah.
It's like I'm riding my bike. I know I can ride my bike and I'm going to enjoy it. And suddenly all of that just goes away, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think these events come down to two things. And I think if you're a real cyclist, you get to do two things you really, really love on these events. And that's ride your bike all day and eat food all day. It's probably the biggest perk you get from doing any cycling event, especially an event like this where you're not necessarily in that kind of elite bubble of having to be in the cuts and the throes of like trying to fight each other in the corners, and it's a lot more chilled out. Really just enjoying the moment and enjoying the experience and reminding yourself that there isn't any judgment from anyone. We've all been there.
No.
We've all first ultra. We've all done something which is a big, scary, hairy thing. And if you don't get nervous about that, then you're totally right. There's definitely something wrong there. You have to be a little bit.
It's normal. It's normal. You've got to be prepared for that and accept that. But it disappears pretty quickly, doesn't it? And can that just pick up on another thing that, well, I think both of you pointed to, something that's long. Everyone's challenge is different, isn't it? It's like, I mean, we talked about this before, like a 200 mile, even for, the top elite racers, pretty intimidating. It's a long way to go fast. And it's going to hurt if you're of that racing mentality. But then all the other people have got a different challenge, which is they're out there for a lot longer. And the challenge for them is just to get around.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of, everyone has their own battles, whether it's the fastest or the people who are new to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, as well, is that Tom, you'll see this a lot from your end, from obviously working with the ambassadors and everything you do at Restrap, but the community that you're around in these events, that really matters. And I think that one thing we've all experienced in these things is that you might have a moment where you're having a little wobble and you feel like, I can't do this, but you're never actually alone in these things. There's always someone just coming around the next corner or catching up, and someone you can kind of break that monotony of being in your own echo chamber more than anything.
Exactly, Jimmy. I think there's almost 2 points there, isn't there? There's, you're metaphorically not alone, and that any feeling that you have, that at least half the field is probably having exactly that feeling. If not exactly then at some point during the race. But then, physically, then I can't think of an ultra that I've done where I've not come away with somebody who is my new best friend. And it's amazing. You might be riding next to each other for 10 minutes, but for those 10 minutes, you're sharing the deepest, most personal thoughts. And a lot of the time, you're seeing somebody at their absolute lows and the highest highs as well. And I think it's always something where, you see it as a solo event, but it's really not. There are people all around you, and lean on that. There's nothing wrong with riding side by side with somebody for a little while, and whether that's helping them out by having a conversation or drawing on their energy, and it will balance out over the course of the 300k.
Yeah, and I think what we're all kind of getting at is that just break it into chunks, just to the next two climbs or to the feed, because there's 3 feed stations there, so they're well spread out. It's a chance for a bit of interaction with someone who's maybe just some of the staff who'll be there and helping out and all that sort of stuff. So there's always someone there who you can sometimes open your heart up to and just say, I don't think I can do this. But the lows will always happen, and I think if you go into this expecting there won't be a few low points, you're kind of almost kidding yourself on, because there will always be something, no matter how seasoned you are and experienced you are. It could be, you could drop some of your food, you could drop your rain jacket, your tires could puncture so badly that you need to ride on the rim for hours. So there's always something that you're going to have to deal with. And I think the most important
that's one of the beauties as well, isn't it, Jimmy? That I think the older that we get, then the fewer opportunities there are to do something new, because there's always, I've done that before. And I guarantee that whether it's your first ultra or whether it's your 10th or your 50th, something new will happen during that. You will see something, you will have that moment where the light is so beautiful and heartbreakingly stunning, or something goes wrong, but it's something that you learn from and you grow from, and it doesn't necessarily feel great at the time, but it's one of those things that eventually it's a memory that you draw upon.
Yeah, I think it goes quickly from type 1 to type 3. It misses out type 2, doesn't it? Just goes straight to type 3. You're having to do it because you're there.
Can I just jump in on something where you're talking about how to break it down?
Yeah.
I know it sounds really simplistic, but I do think using things like the feed stations, and then you've got a lovely round number of, well, 200 miles, 320k, and anybody who enters this, I know they're going to have done a good degree of training. It's not going to be, they'll have done 50-mile rides, they'll have done maybe 100-mile rides, but you can then just break it down. And I mean, I find myself doing this. I did this in Further Scotland. It's like, I know the distance. I don't like to fixate too much on distance, but it is a marker. And you can get done 50 miles. That's my Sunday ride that I normally do. That wasn't too bad. Right, I've done 100 miles. I've done 105 miles, and now I'm over halfway.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to get to 150 miles. And then I kind of find myself looking back and going, well, I did 150 miles. What's another 50? I mean, when I did the North Coast 500, I did, like not quite as fast as you, but I was up at the top corner, and I was like, it's only 100 miles back to Inverness.
Yeah.
I was only 100 miles. I've done 400 miles. It's only 100 miles, and it just went like that. And it wasn't any easier. You know what it's like at that stage. It's no easier. But psychologically, it was kind of like, well, I've got past that hurdle and that one, so I can do another one.
Yeah, 100%. Just to kind of wrap this mindset kind of section up, Tom, what sort of things do you, a little nugget that you've got from a mindset point of view, whether it's a distraction tactic or a survival instinct that you rely on?
I think we've ticked off lots of them in that I'm quite a food oriented kind of person, and
Perfect.
I think there's two elements to that. There's the one where you've got feed zones, and that not only have you got probably something warm, there's nice people there looking after you, but also I think it's the trying to always think on, okay, it's not just about my legs turning up and down. There's other things to be doing, whether that's looking at, okay, where am I? How far have I gone? How far is there to go? When was the last time I ate? Whereabouts am I on the route? And doing things that just mean that you keep on making forward progress rather than stopping. It's scary how you pause for 5 minutes and you keep pausing for 5 minutes, and before you know it, an entire hour has gone over the course of 3 hours. Whereas if you keep on moving, then the distance is coming down constantly. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how psychologically seeing the little number on your GPS either going up or down, depending on how you're counting, actually makes in terms of this is happening. There's this magnetic draw towards the finish line.
Mm-hmm. And it's breaking things up, those little markers beyond the ones that we mentioned, things like, every hour I'm making sure I've had this much food up, and you get into that good routine and habit, don't you? And suddenly it's all kind of flowing, and you know that you're doing it, and you're stopping less, and all, like you say, that feeling of moving forward is really motivating. Doesn't matter how fast you go in.
Yeah. You're getting close to the finish if you keep moving, aren't you? The other thing is as well, obviously, if you've got a hedge unit, you can program that to give you an alert every 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something simple, eat and drink. Simple as that, eat and drink. And then I suppose if you're trying to, we'll get into the kind of the weeds of kind of training and preparation in a moment or two, but I think even just knowing how much food you need to eat per hour and what that kind of looks like from a modular point of view, is it 5 Rice Krispie squares, or is it 4 bananas, or what is it you have to eat and drink per hour, and have that roughly in your head, so that then you know that when you get to the feeding stations, if you are out of food, you know how much you'll need to get to the next one, just in case you drop something or use a water bottle or something like that. Zoe,
but that really keeps your head engaged, doesn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, those little patterns and processes.
Yeah, absolutely. Zoe, just to round this off, a little nugget from you. What got you through your first ultra when you're at your lowest low? I believe you might have accidentally fell asleep as well at one point. Would that be right?
Yeah, I feel like I shouldn't feel it. At the moment I felt quite ashamed I did this, but basically at the land between my first ever ultra, Richard's Ultra, had a bit of like I want to go race this. I had an early crash and I think my body just caught up with me, so I decided to lay down on the moors. As I was lying down in my sleeping bag, put my phone on charge. My charger was not working, or my cable was not working. All the alarms, therefore, were not set, and I fell asleep for 8 hours up on the moors, which was not in the race plan at all. But actually had the best night's sleep of my life, and would do it again. But yeah, I feel this is a memory, very core memory to my first ever ultra that I will never forget. And actually catching up to people because I had that good rest was a big win in
That's
my
a learning
life.
thing
I
in
had
itself.
legs that I didn't have before, and yeah, just went for it. So
Yeah,
sleep,
and with this route, you've got two areas. I think it's feed 2 and feed 3, where you can actually take a moment if you need a wee 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just to sit down, switch off, reset, recalibrate. They've got that opportunity.
Yeah.
So that wraps up. Sorry, you go, Malcolm.
Before we do wrap that up, I'd be really keen to never having ridden through the night myself properly. I'd be really keen to understand any experiences or mind management that the rest of the panel may be able to share, that will give people an insight into what the sensations are like when it gets dark. You know, you realise you're in the Glentrool or somewhere, and what that feels like, and how best manage it first time around.
I guess it's worth remembering that come May, then it is not dark at 4 p.m. like it is now, which is a massive bonus. So you've got that huge sort of window of the evening where everything is a little bit calmer, people aren't out in general, and there's that. I love that really special moment where it's around about sunset and the light's getting really nice, and you realise, apart from the other people who are racing, I'm probably the only person out at this time. And then I think there's always that really nice sensation of you doing something new and it's different. So the first few hours of darkness always feel quite exciting, because it's your adrenaline's up and it's like, oh my. For me, there's a window that's between kind of midnight through to maybe 3-4 a.m. where I have a big dip. I think my body clock is pretty hardwired to, if it's dark, I should be in bed. In fact, I might just have a little nap soon anyway. And it's really, I'm lucky in that I've done enough of these now that I know that that's going to happen, and there's not a lot that I can do about it other than just get my head down and carry on riding. Yeah. But there's always the little carrot of, you know, that it's going to be light again. Time moves on, and again, you get to see things that you don't notice in day-to-day life. That wildlife is beginning to wake up in that little hour or two before true sunrise, and there's it takes you out of the racing for a while, because you're just absorbed totally in being in this beautiful place.
I love night riding. It's one of my favourite things in doing this type of stuff. And then, you know, talking about going back, breaking things down again, it's like I'm looking forward to the night. Yeah, it's my favourite. And people think you're not going to see anything because it's dark. That's just not true.
You get to see it's a totally different way of seeing things.
Yeah,
I think that everything gets a little bit. Your senses change. You don't become as visually dependent. You're hearing more things. Your bike sounds noisier underneath you. You can hear stuff and riders in the distance and behind you and all that sort of stuff. And it's one of those things where the senses really start to change and play with you a little bit, I always find. I'm
not going to race this. I'm just going to stay out all night. I'm going to go for 25 hours.
Amazing. That's great. Now, we'll now move on to discussing, ultimately, training and getting prepared. Best ways of preparing for your body for your first ultra. Richard, you're obviously the main man when it comes to training philosophy and principles, etc. When it comes to training for an ultra,
Yeah.
I think the most important things from my point of view, and I think everyone would agree on screen, is that consistency is the most important part, along with trying to get as much volume in your training at the same time.
Yeah.
But that in itself obviously helps to build that confidence, and you're starting to train to the demands of the event. But you're also getting to practice some stuff sometimes, I think, when you're tired. If you've had a long day at work and then go out and doing like a 2-hour night ride at 9 o'clock, doesn't sound that appetizing right now in the depths of winter, but that inevitably is something you might have to look at. But from your point of view, fit and training around about life, what to practice, and in general training principles, what have you got for us?
I would say people can often, the old school kind of just go out and ride. Obviously, we now know doesn't apply in the same way. So, especially in our northern hemisphere climate, you know, going out and doing huge weeks and huge volume rides in the conditions we've got at the moment isn't very appealing to many people. So, what you've got to do through the winter is look at ways of kind of having some kind of aerobic development, depending on where the ride is coming from, and some kind of volume. But the important thing, like you said, is being consistent, and you build that aerobic resilience, and you build that kind of aerobic engine over weeks and months. So you don't have to be doing huge volume like at this time of year. I mean, some of my riders now, Zoe's a bit different. Obviously, she's in a different place for next week, but I would say some of my riders with like early season targets, now we're starting to put a bit of volume on, but not hugely. It will be kind of in the specificity phase where we're getting near at the events where we start be doing the big longer rides and doing some of the kind of work that is absolutely specific to the event. So in this kind of event, from what I can see of the route, you know, you've got a lot of long sustained climbs. It doesn't like there's any kind of steep punchy climbs. So I would be looking at kind of long tempo and sweet spot type work, stretching that out as we get the specific times and adding some volume. It really depends on where the rider's coming from. So, you know, if you have somebody who's maybe a crit racer or a road racer, they might have a very kind of a very what's the term? You know, a very kind of short duration intensity abilities.
Yeah, be punchy.
There may be a more punchy rider. That's what I was looking for. But for this kind of event, you know, I'd look at them and go, right, well, we need to draw out your aerobic abilities so you can ride for longer at those kind of sub-threshold paces. And that would be what they would be looking at for this time of year. And again, for people coming from a road or a kind of a background where they're not doing as much off-road riding, I would say get out and do a lot of off-road riding, practice bike handling on loose surfaces, get used to ride on a gravel bike. That's really, really important as well.
Yeah, that's one thing. I think that's the training for purpose, you know, and I think you need to think about the demands that actually come off the terrain. You can ride your bike for 4 hours on the road and come home and not really be too uncomfortable. But I remember last year, even just doing the Gralloch last year, it's only 100 and whatever K. It's like a third of the distance of this, but the terrain can be that punishing sometimes that if you've got your tire pressure in the wrong place, you're not got enough bar tape or the wrong gloves or whatever. My feet were absolutely killing me, and my triceps were absolutely killing me as well. Obviously, that's a intense sort of 4 hours, but that doesn't mean that the same things can't potentially happen in the longer drawn out event as well. So it's just making sure you're aware of the sort of the axial kind of stress that's coming through your body and through the bike, because
you ride the bike in a different way, don't you?
Yeah, you have to kind of float a lot more when you're on when you're off road. You have to kind of look at the contours and watch all the holes and the compressions and stuff like that, and try and use some of that for speed, but also trying to avoid a lot of it sometimes, especially at night time when you might not be super comfortable with it. Just being a little bit more rigid in the bike, and it costs you energy, basically, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, again, something I would say to people for all riders is strength work, especially relating to what you've just been saying there. You know, you're not sitting on the saddle hard like you do on a road bike. You're hovering above it. You're suspending your body more. So I think strength work's a really critical part of training all the way through the year.
Yeah. What about fitting training around life? Obviously, the majority of people who are going to be doing these events, very few of them will be full-time bike riders. If you've got an event of this length, how would someone look to gain that amount of volume that we're going to obviously need closer to the event? Is it a matter of doing everything at weekends, or can they spread stuff throughout the day, like using your commute as an example? Or if you work from home, going out in the morning, doing something, then doing something at lunchtime, then maybe something later on the day? How could you do it? Would all of that work, or would it have to be something totally different?
I try to encourage people to spread some endurance out through the week rather than just like loading all the endurance at the weekend, because then if you do longer hours, it knocks you out for a couple of days before you can do any more quality work again. So, I mean, I've done this myself, many years ago, going out and doing 6 and 8 hour rides, and you're just too tired for a couple of days afterwards. So, split it, like do back to back 3 hours, back to back 4 hours, maybe stick another couple of hours endurance during the week. And that way you're building up your endurance, but you're not making yourself too tired for any other sessions. So I think that's a good way of doing it. And then other ways of getting the volume in, like we've talked about the specificity stage as you get nearer to the event, perhaps look at your work diary, your life diary generally, your family commitments, and kind of plan in some periods where it's like, well, I'm going to put in that kind of 3 weeks of progressively adding some volume, and then I'm going to have the week off and do the DIY and the shopping and all those other things that I've probably missed.
The negotiation phase of life when you're in
negotiation. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked with a guy who did the Pan Celtic, and he doesn't have a load of time to ride. And if you don't know the Pan Celtic, very long, 1,000 kilometers, doesn't have loads of time. But we kind of planned in this kind of 2-month cycle of progressively having more volume for 3 weeks, then a rest week, then another 3 weeks of volume, because he needed that volume. He needed it for the demands of the event. And so he went away and he spoke to his family, and he looked at his work diary, and it was all kinds of ready there in place. There was no surprises. There was no like, oh, I'm just popping out for 5 hours now.
Yeah.
And it worked really well for him, and he got around, which was fantastic.
Brilliant. So that's kind of give us a rough idea of what to kind of how to almost structure the training. Rest weeks. Most athletes don't like rest weeks because they feel that they're not making progress, but rest weeks are more important than the training blocks that you're doing, whether it's a 3-week or a 4-week block. The rest is where all the magic happens, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd say, I think one of the big challenges and one of the interesting things with coaching a lot of people who aren't full-time professionals is juggling all the other stuff that goes on around the riding. So the kind of, it's really nice if you can get a good progressive 3-week build and then a rest, but it doesn't always work that way, because it's like I've got that planned in, then something's happened for work and I've had to go away and I couldn't ride for a couple of days. So I guess that's my job a lot of the time, is going, all right, well, we're going to work out where we can get you tired and fatigued, and so that your body's going to compensate and adapt. And then we're going to add another block in. And I think you've just got to look for those opportunities where you can put the hours in and try and plan them in such a way that you put the hours in, and then hopefully the other demands of life allow you to have that bit of rest time afterwards.
Yeah. I think we touched on it previously. I think, Tom, you touched on it, looking at things that what to practice, like obviously riding in bad weather, night riding, eating while you're riding, trying to do everything when you're moving, but other things like being competent at fixing your bike. That's something you don't want to be doing literally in the middle of the night during the ultra. So what sort of things should people be thinking about? I mean, things like how to fix a puncture. Nobody wants to just, randomly buy a brand new tire and start stabbing stuff into them just to see how it works. But what's the best way of getting people's heads around all those little things and stuff? We'll talk about setup in a little bit, but things like what should they be practicing?
It's funny, isn't it? We were talking about how the amazing thing about doing ultras is you're doing new things, but then there's certain things that you don't want to be new come race day, and something going wrong with the bike where you're tired, it's dark, you can't see as well, is not the time to be trying something new if you can ideally help it. So for me, I think the nice thing about if you're doing your training properly, you're going to be out on the bike often enough that these things are going to occur anyway. You're probably going to have a puncture at some point. You're going to learn how to use tubeless worms if that's the case. At some stage, you're probably going to have something that is bad enough that you need to boot the tire. You need to even maybe put in the call and get rescued. And it's a really hard one in that there's a point where you just need experience to know what to do. But I think there are things that you can do to counter that as well, in that the small things like understanding what size bolts your bike has and making sure that your multi-tool has got those. And it's thinking about, well, okay, if on an average 50k ride, I take a spare tube and I take these bits and pieces, well, I'm doing 6 50k rides, 7 50k rides linked together. What's the likelihood of something else going wrong? Well, perhaps I do want a chain breaker. Perhaps I do want some spare chain plates and chain links to be able to put in. And if you're using electronic gears, then maybe I want a spare battery. And some of the things where on a normal ride you're not going to worry about, but you've just spent 5 months, 6 months putting your heart and soul into training for this. The last thing that you want to happen is something that was completely and utterly in your control to then derail it while you're still feeling great and you feel like you can carry on riding for forever. And it's really hard to sort of drill into specifics because it depends a little bit on your bike. But there are those real basic things that you can do that I think stand you in really good stead. And yeah, the worst could still happen, but the more of those that you do, then the less likely that is, I think.
Yeah, I think it comes down to prevention over cure, and sometimes when it comes to these events, more it's actually probably the only time in life when more is actually more. So carry a couple of extra tools, extra worms, all that sort of stuff, just in case, because.
And I know
it's
it's a conversation I've had with so many friends who've been preparing for long rides or races, and it's the world, you carry an extra tube. And what's that? So it's a few 100 grams. And the worst case scenario is it's going to add a few seconds to your time. Best case scenario is it means you get to finish and you're not scratching partway around. And when you boil it down to that, it feels like I'm somebody who I'd say I'm more down the minimalist end of the scale, but there are certain things that I would never ever dream of not taking, and a decent toolkit and the right spares is one that I'd never scrimp on.
We're going to talk about setup in a little minute, but just to round this part off, we want to talk about nutrition and fueling. We've obviously got feed zones there, 3 feed zones, indoor spaces in community centres, etc., and warm food. You can drop a bag off as well with anything that you might like, a nice treat for yourself halfway through feed zone 2. Well, it could be anything. But Zoe, for your point of view, we obviously need to think about simple rules: eating early, eating often, training your gut, and options for sweet and savoury because you get a bit of palate fatigue, etc. What's kind of like, if you were to give anyone any nutrition advice for this kind of event, what would it be?
Eat. No, I mean, it's quite interesting because when I first started like cycling more and more, I really did not eat on the bike, and I'd be like, why am I always so tired after a bike ride? Like, why am I just sat in bed all day? And it was actually like a close friend of mine was like, why are you not eating? And when I started eating, it just changed the game completely. And I think like Rich has really good advice on this. He's always like, eat from the get-go, because like your stomach is constantly trying to like process this. Like if you get really hungry and then eat all at once, your stomach's going to go, what the hell? So I think, always continue to eat foods that are going to work for you, but also foods that excite you. My last race, I had a top tube full of dates and then also stroop waffles, which went solid as a rock because I was in Scotland. But it just got me so excited, and I know they work for my body. So I think, train with the foods that you would want to eat and do keep you full, and then eat those whilst you're racing as well, because your body will be able to figure out how to process it more easily.
So we talk a lot about carbohydrates and sugars, but Rich, something savoury, a snack that's savoury, and the same question to you, Tom, and we'll come back to you as well, that one, Zoe. A savoury snack that you would always put in your top tube bag.
As a coach, I can't say pepperonis, but I do like them. Sushi, really good savoury snack. There's a really good book. I'm sure you've seen it. The Feed Zone.
Yeah.
got loads of great ideas in there for making your own rice cakes and stuff. You can put them into, I mean, I do this quite often for races. You can wrap them individually in tin foil, put them in your back pocket. That's a really good one. I sometimes get for a long one, I'll get the flatbreads. They're like squares and they're thinly sliced and they're only kind of that thin. Get some of those and get some the slice of cheese, put those in, and then you can put them back in the packet and seal it again. And once you've hit that point where you've enough sugar and you want to change and you want a bit of, you're saying about flavor fatigue, those are fantastic. It's not too much fat, it's digestible, it's savory, it's salty. That really works really well. And then I go back to the sugary stuff again and it doesn't taste so bad anymore. So
Tom, what about you?
Yeah, similarly, I think it's a really interesting distance that's in that you're not out for, it's not multiple days, so you're not seeking real, or you don't necessarily need real food in the same way as you would do if you were doing a 3-day, 4-day ultra. And I'm sure that there's not a single nutrition textbook in the world that would recommend baby wells, but they're brilliant. And again, they're easy to eat. They're in their own little wrapper. You can munch them as you're riding along, and they provide something that's a little bit different. Yeah. And it's, in some ways, it's almost a psychological little cuddle that you get from a nice little bit of cheese, as it is the actual nutritional value that you're taking out of it. You're not going to have one and turn into Popeye and be racing up the road, but you're perhaps going to feel a little bit better and be ready to have another gel in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
something like a nice camembert just in your middle pocket. Just so it's
yeah,
nice.
Absolutely. A baby raclette and the little grill, and you can, yeah.
Zoe, what about you? What would be your go-to savoury? You've obviously your stroopwafel, lass, and dates. What about savoury?
I would say also quite similar to Rich. I always buy like these flatbreads because they are literally so flat. You can just put them in your back or wherever you want to put them. And if I'm feeling adventurous, maybe if I've got a banana, smash a banana between them on the bike as well, because like a little sandwich. But yeah, usually like some bread, and then also I recently had like peanut butter and jam, which is not savoury, I know, but well,
can be
a little bit. But yeah, that kind of thing where it's like bread and then you can put anything in it. So
I grew up on a good old cheese and jam sandwich. That always works a treat. Excellent. So now what we'll do now is we kind of, Tom, we're starting to talk a little bit about setup, etc. I see yourself and obviously Zoe, she's actually got our kit bag and our bike set up right behind her for the Atlas Mountains. Let's talk a bit about kit that's going to help keep you moving ultimately. So you've got your bike behind you. We're looking for ultra bike setups, what you're carrying, what to pack, etc.
For sure, yeah. And again, I think there's taking this particular race into context with other ultras as well. And if we just frame it around, let's say you're the person that is coming to Gralloch and you're doing the ultra, you're probably not going to sleep. You're going to try and ride through. You might get 5 minutes in one of the feed zones, but for the most part, I would imagine most of the people who are riding are not going to be bringing a full camping setup or anything else. Having said that, there's still a hell of a lot more that you probably want to bring than you would do on a typical day ride. It's something that I think we've all experienced before, is that the more tired you get, then the colder you get. And you're not, I mean, I know that you've booked the really good weather for the weekend and it's going to be amazing, but occasionally I've heard that Scotland can be, a little bit iffy weather-wise. And yeah, there will be extra layers that you want to bring. Fingers crossed you'll be in shorts and jersey for 90% of the time, but even if you are, actually, if it's a clear night in the middle of summer, it does get cold and there's that temperature difference, so you will want extra layers. And you need ways of carrying those. And we talked about having mechanicals as well. You want to have that toolkit, you want to have spares, have a decent pump that can actually inflate your tyre relatively quickly. You want to have, enough food to carry to take between feed stops as well. And so many other little things, stuff like I always carry a little emergency bivvy bag as well, because we'll get onto the safety side. There's always that I don't want to think about the worst case scenario, but if it happens, I want the worst case scenario to be as good as possible, which is that I'm hurt, but I'm warm and I can stay where I am for a little while as well. And there are so many different ways that you can carry that on your body or on your bike. And it's really interesting that I think, looking at 24-hour races where you're doing laps, then generally we'd have had something in a back pocket and maybe a tiny little saddle pack, and that was all you had. And certainly when I started doing bigger, longer rides, self-supported, it was kind of before bikepacking was a thing. So you'd have a big camelback or a rucksack and you'd have everything in there. And by the end of it, your backside would be really sore because you've had all this extra weight on your back. And you don't need to do that anymore. Obviously, I work for Restrap. We make bike luggage for bikepacking and ultras. And there are so many different options. I'm not going to give the whole sales pitch. We're one company that does it. There are others out there that do similar bags, and if people have got them already, then use them. But I think for me, there's I suppose 3 or 4 key areas that I'd look to carry luggage. It's just hiding behind me. I've got a saddlebag here, and for me, that's the perfect kind of location to stash the warm jacket, maybe a waterproof, maybe even waterproof trousers. It's those layers that you're probably not going to be reaching for immediately, but they're there. They're the little safety net that you've got. And then something like a frame bag is great for tools, for a pump, perhaps for the bigger pieces of food that you're not reaching for to eat every 20 minutes, every 40 minutes, but you're going to have in there at some stage. And things like spare gloves. I personally, I really hate wearing gloves unless I absolutely have to. But when I have to, you want to have them there and you want to put them on so you can stash them in there. And then for me, there's a couple of things that I haven't got on the bike, but the key, and we've been talking about that fueling as you're going, then having something that you can access while you're riding and you don't even have to stop or pause for a second. So something like a top tube bag is great, where you can unzip it with one hand. You've got a hand on the handlebars still. And this is kind of about a medium-sized one that we do, and there's so much room in there for snacks, and you can just reach in and away you go. And we also do stem bag style thing, which if you know kind of climbing chalk bag, it's sort of similar to that. So you can have sweets in there, you can have little bits of food in there that again you can just reach into, and you can snack as you go along. And I think by having that sort of sensible approach and picking the bags that you think are really going to be useful to you and testing them out well beforehand as well, so for me, there are certain things that I don't particularly like doing on the bike. I'm not a massive fan of the stem bag because occasionally my knee hits it and I'm terrible at remembering to do up the top, so my sweets will bounce out. Whereas others I know they absolutely love it and they rely on it. I'd much rather have a top tube bag, and I use one of these on most rides. And it's one of those things where it started out as something that we developed for bikepacking and that drifted into ultra racing. And now it's amazing how many people you'll see out on a Saturday or Sunday ride, and instead of having their gels in their back pocket, they've got a little top tube bag, or they've got a canister bag like I've got on the front of the bike.
I mean, when you've been sitting there on the hoods for a long time, it's quite hard. It gets quite hard going into your back pocket. It hurts your shoulders. So having it right in front of you makes it easy to eat.
Yeah, and it's the one thing that I've also not talked about. I did say at the start that kind of carrying things on the back is not necessarily good, but don't look too much at the colour, because this is one of our really early prototypes of a hydration vest. So this you can actually put a water bladder in, so you can carry extra carrying capacity for water. You've got pockets at the front that are super accessible, nice and easy to get into. And it's the kind of thing where, again, you want to make it as easy as physically possible to stay fueled. And it's the mental load as much as it is the physical load, that the less you're having to think about and the more it's just there, then the more that you do it. And I was going to, Rich, you've kind of gone full circle as well, haven't you? That there was a time where you'd probably have never worn a camelback because you just didn't need to, but now it's rare that I see you out on a ride without a hydration vest on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I find it, I'm going out tomorrow, going out for a bothy night. I'll fill up with a couple of litres of water. It's slim, It's easy. You can put your phone in. So yeah, I mean, I'll most likely be wearing that one for the Gralloch myself.
I think the other part of that as well is that I use a vest when I'm, well, a vest or a balada when I'm racing, mainly because trying to drink sometimes on the terrain, you just don't even want to take your hand off the bars. So it's literally just grab the hose, jam it in, and just leave it in there for a minute or two and just try and get as much out of it as I can. Likewise with the top tube bag, it's like you're saying, Tom, it's right there. It's really easy to access. So it's not like you have to do some kind of crazy gymnastics, on a bumpy bit of terrain, and suddenly before you know it, you've slapped off and something wrong. Something's been pretty wrong for you. But I think that easy access part, if you've got those things, it also makes it so much easier for you just to keep on top of those things. But Zoe, what about you? What about your setup, Zoe? You've obviously got a massive ultra coming up, but if you were doing this, what would your setup be? Would you go quite minimal, or would you take a bit extra just in case now that you're a bit more experienced?
Ooh, I probably would go for the frame pack and then a hydration bag, and also so for Atlas I'm taking the roll top hydration pack from Restrap, which obviously gives you a lot more room to play with. So either that, depending on the weather as well. But yeah, usually a hydration pack and then a frame pack and then maybe a small saddle pack behind. So yeah, like lightish, but also I'm very much like bring what you can if you can,
Yeah,
So
I think from my point of view, the non-negotiables, if I was doing this, would be a really good multi-tool, plenty of plugs, some inner tubes, a down jacket, a really lightweight down jacket, and something waterproof. The best ones ever were the Gore-Tex shake dries, but they're not allowed anymore. But if you can get one of them on the black market, buy it, because it's an incredible bit of kit. But for me, they're kind of five
Mountain
main
Equipment have just done a little launch of, I think they must have had a roll or two of shake dry tucked away somewhere. So it's a hooded one, so it's not quite so cycling specific, but it's actually, for me, it's a good point. I love a hooded waterproof for ultra events.
If it's really bad, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, again, it's that psychological benefit of just being able to feel like you're fully sheltering yourself, as well as obviously you are better sheltered.
Doesn't run down your neck.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get people saying like, oh, I'm targeting this ultra in somewhere like some other country in 6 months' time. What do you think I should be taking? I'm like, I don't know yet. Like, we could have 30 degrees, not a breath of wind and beautiful, or then we could have a proper Scottish summer's day where it's like 8 degrees and raining. So I think the important thing is to practice as much as you can through all conditions, and then when you get near at the event, you look at the forecast and you'll instinctively know it's like, I need this and I need this and I need this, and these are the bags I'm going to use, rather than just like kind of having a fixed plan.
Yeah, I feel really guilty that I only washed the bike about half an hour before the call, because it was looking pretty bad beforehand, and I did put on the saddle pack just for illustration, but the frame bag has been on there for the last couple of months, and it's kind of a go-to for any winter rides. And I'd say absolutely try out stuff now, work out what works for you. I know that it's kind of a time of year where nobody's got loads of spare money to throw around, but try and reach and buy the kit that you think you're going to use now. I know Max put up a discount code, and it's it doesn't mean that you can necessarily buy everything straight away, but yeah, where you can do, get what you think you're going to need now, and use it, and then you can start honing down. And I'd always say, for your first ultra, take more than you think you'll need. Consult, listen to other people, listen to voices of experience, but it's not the one to strip everything down and go all out for. Learn and enjoy that experience, and then if there's something that you didn't need to take, then you learn from that, and there's always other ultras out there after.
Amazing. So if you are interested in anything, get onto restrap.com and use the code Gralloch Webinar 20 for a 20% discount. That's valid until the end of February. So you've still got a bit of time to do a bit of perusing and wait for your big meaty check to come in to your bank account end of January and get straight on the website 1st of February and get yourself some kit from Restrap. So we've discussed obviously mindset, fueling, training, and we've now discussed kit. One of the most important parts of this event is obviously safety and the support. It's going to be fully supported, obviously, all the way from start to finish. And we know that for a lot of people, this distance can feel hugely intimidating. And you would, obviously, if it's your first ultra, be quite worried about safety. And that's totally normal. We've got a sort of a rider safety net. It's been designed and tested to make sure that you can obviously enjoy the event, and we'll do all the worrying in the background for everything else. But Malcolm, you're the perfect person now to come in and give that little bit of detail and reassurance to the people who are maybe thinking about doing this for their first event.
Very good, Jimmy. Thanks for that. Let me just say to start with, I was somewhat concerned with Richard's remark that it might rain and be cold. Surely not. But in any event, what we have to do is be conscious of that, and really safety really does start at home, and being able to look after yourselves in the way the guys have been talking about this evening, with the right preparation for your bike and your equipment and nutrition and understanding of the environment you're going into, which then means that the likelihood of then needing our assistance at some point in the event is much mitigated. So I think really my reason for being on the webinar with everyone this evening is because I do have that ultimate responsibility for making sure everyone is safe. And there are a number of key tools at our disposal, above and beyond people looking after themselves and looking after one another. As I say, that's really where it does start. We have a number of key tools at our disposal to make sure that you're never far from help if you need it. For those that are not familiar with what a control room is, it's essentially a data center with some experienced managers in it that take data feeds in from around the course. And that might very well be, and I suppose key data feeds we'll be getting from you will be from the GPS trackers that people will be riding with. There will be instructions when you pick them up as to where to put them, where to not put them, how to look after them, so that you're giving us the best chance of being able to see where you are. All of those trackers will be being monitored throughout the whole event on a huge screen in the by a team of people in the event control room. If one stops moving, we'll keep an eye on it, and if it continues to stop moving, we'll then have to start mobilizing some sort of response to that, either putting you on a watch list, or if the tracker is not moving for a long while. So I mean, in the event, let's take Zoe's case, when she fell asleep for 8 hours, we would have had an ambulance out there and no doubt a helicopter looking for her, because we'd have noticed that she wasn't moving. So it is, joking aside, it is important that people give us visibility of those, and so that we put them in best places that they can give us the data that we want, in order that if we need to mobilize a response from the control room, we will. The control room also receives, so we've got a telephone line in there, and I know we are going to be in the remotest of remote areas out here where telephone signal is often poor, but we've been out and tested the route for signal. We know where the black spots are, and we know in most places you can get WhatsApp messages out or similar. So everyone, when they arrive for the event, will be given the emergency number for the event control room. We'll have somebody monitoring that telephone and WhatsApp messaging for the full duration of the event. And so if you need to make contact with the control room to activate some sort of response, we will be there and we'll be listening. Now, if you can't get through, if you are in one of those black spots, then we will know that where the GPS is probably not moving. So we'll have an eye on you. But then you could ask other riders to send a message if necessary when they get some signal if you're unable to move. So one way or another, the data that we get will allow us to make some informed decisions. And ideally, it'll be you being able to have a full telephone conversation with us, and yeah, because you have great signal out there. If not, it'll be a WhatsApp message from yourself or another rider. We have a medical support based out in the middle of the course. Well, we'll have on the Saturday, I think we've got 6 ambulances out covering both the UCI race and the Ultra. We've got a dedicated ambulance out there in the day for the Ultra. So if we do need it, we can dispatch it. But to dispatch it, we do need to find out where people are. And if it's just a question of your bike's broken, you're exhausted, can't carry on, then that's absolutely fine too. We've got rider repatriation 4x4 dedicated for the whole event out there, so we can come and fish you out from wherever you are. And so yeah, and better to be doing that than trying to maybe exhaust yourself more or ride on a broken bike out to roads. Now that in the event you do choose to abandon, by the way, we would be asking you to make your way back to you. Let us know that you've abandoned through the WhatsApp or telephone with your rider number, and so at least we can take you off any watch list and look out for you and celebrate you getting yourself back safely into Gatehouse of Fleet. At the feed stations, we have tech boxes out there with spares in them, pumps, tools, and like that, and yes, well, spare tires, darts, sealant, inner tubes, and the likes. Supported by the event sponsors like Panracer, for example. So in the event you do need to use those, they're available for you at the feed stations. Feed stations, as we've already said, will have hot food in them. We will also be running repeating this now. We'll also be running a bag drop for anybody that wants to take any of their own stuff out to Feed Zone 2, which you can then pick up. So if you want a sleeping bag, you think you might need to use one but don't want to carry it, you can use it indoors at Feed Zone 2. And then at the feed stations, we've got a bunch of really friendly people, local people, who are going to be manning those for us. They're going to be highly visible, lots of flags outside, and I believe there's one of the communities is planning an all-night barbecue as well, in the event that you fancy something other than a very, no doubt, desirable flatbread cheese sandwich. But if you fancy something a little bit more substantial than that, then it will be available and will be being provided by the local community. So look, I mean, wherever you are in this event, we've got our eyes on you. It will feel like the wilderness, but you're not far from support. We hope you don't need it, but it is there in case you do.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think it's just having that last piece of a safety net for everyone, just to reassure them. But you have to also remember the you'll get a real sense of this on the weekend. The camaraderie of all the riders around about. Everyone will definitely, if you have a problem, someone will stop and check on you and just make sure. So as we say, you're never really going to be alone. If you are alone, it won't be for very long. That's for sure. But that sounds very, very thorough. So thank you very much for that, Malcolm. We're now going to finish off with a little Q&A. We have had quite a few people pop some questions across to us on social media. There have been some questions in the chat, and I believe that we have answered most of them, but I'm going to look at my list of stuff here. What's the best gearing setup for this route? 2x, 1x, 52 at the back, 10 at the back? What are we looking at?
I'm leaning towards a double myself. I've got a single and a double, but I'm thinking, lots of rolling terrain. Want to have a big gear out and get on top of.
Yep.
Yeah, probably a double. But then
I was
It's
hoping
swings
you
and
were going to say
roundabouts, isn't
single
it?
speed, Rich.
Yeah, same.
I mean, but the swings and roundabouts of that is it having that big gear can encourage you to push it a bit too hard too early. Like a single chain ring can kind of help you with keeping a lid on things a little bit. So yeah, but I'm thinking double myself.
Definitely have a get out of jail gear in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Well, it's a really small inside ring of like a 34 and 40 something at the back, or if you're running one by, a 52 at the back, maybe like a mountain bike cluster or something like that would also work really, really well. The spread is the technology now, and the spread you can get is pretty good, whether you're using one by or two by. But really good question. What were your thoughts, Tom? Zoe, what would you think you would do?
I'm all one by forever on mine, and then 52 at the back. So, and that keeps me happy. But yeah.
Perfect. Tom?
Weirdly, I think I have actually been happiest doing my ultras with a single speed, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to anybody else. But I think it's worth just remembering that the gearing that you're used to using and are happy using on a 100k ride is not necessarily the same gearing that you're going to want to be using on a 300k ride. And that, again, it's thinking about those moments where perhaps you haven't quite got your fueling right. You are tired. It's the middle of the night, and it's so much better to be sitting and spinning a really easy gear, but still making forward progress than it is to be getting off and walking or cramping or just not feeling like you're able to continue.
Yeah, I think the other thing to take into account as well is that your bike's probably going to weigh a lot more than it would usually on a normal bike ride. You're going to have been laden down with loads of water, food. That's a couple of kilos straight away, as well as any clothing and any other spares you're going to carry. So your bike could possibly be 4, maybe 5 kilos easily heavier than it would normally be. So it's just something to think about as well when you are doing your training sessions on the lead-in. Get used to riding the bikes, especially if you've got a bag on the back of your seat. If they can sway a little bit, just getting used to the handle on the bikes, it will be a little bit different.
100%. I always encourage people to go out and I mean, this isn't like one of the fully laden missions, but put the stuff on your bike and see how it affects the handling, like you're saying. And it's amazing how people just put that stuff on like just before they start something like this. And it's not just how it affects the handling, it's like making sure all the straps are working properly, and how to get in and out of things. Really important.
Yeah, we just actually had a message pop in the chat from Alan Morrison 470. The age-old question, and you know what this is going to be. What is the smallest tire you would suggest?
We should have asked Marcus and Josh, shouldn't we? Because I'm going into this. I've got an idea. But I'm fairly blind.
I've never ridden there, but given what I've seen, then I always prefer a larger tire anyway. So I would never want anything smaller than a 45 off-road. And I feel that any potential drag that you get from that is counterbalanced by the comfort that you get over the longer term.
I've experimented with everything. The first year at the King's Cup I rode 38s, and then I rode the Scottish Nationals on 2.1s. And I'll be honest with you, the bigger tyre, especially for an event like this, is probably the go-to. I would have said something like round about the 2.1. I know that a lot of mountain bike tyres can now fit inside gravel bikes, but if your bike can take 50 mil, I would go 50 mil for sure. Get some really good sealant in there. Just
tire liners.
Liners.
Massive fan of tire liners.
Do your get on the Silca website or other website to check tire pressures for bike weight and your weight as well, and it will tell you the perfect pressure to ride on, because the course round there, depending on how much traffic's been on it. I know the Gralloch itself has been a little bit kind of different in the last couple of years. It's usually been baking hot at the Gralloch, ironically, which we hope will continue, touching wood. It can be pretty dusty, and depending on how much work's been done in the forest, it can get a little bit chunky every now and then as well. So there are things to definitely be aware of. Another question that's came in actually in the chat, but these are really good questions.
Just on that as well though, Jimmy, what I'd also say is I don't, if I'm a big believer in run what you brung. If all the only bike that you've got is a cyclocross bike that clears 35C tires, it's probably not going to be the most comfortable, but you'll get around and you'll still have a great time.
Absolutely. Two other great questions that came in. One from Jerry. 3BTW, what pedals are recommended for gravel riding? I'm a bit of a renegade here. I ride my road pedals, but it's not an ultra. Usually, I'm not usually hiking a bike or pushing things. So yeah, pedals. I would guess mountain bike SP.
I use a Shimano SPD, and I can't think beyond them, to be honest.
Nah.
Like they just work so well, and they're reliable, and yeah. But I think what's perhaps, there's the pedals, but then there's the shoes. And I think that's definitely something worth thinking about. I've got a variety of shoes from downhill shoes that I use for the big missions, like the multi-day things when you hike a bike in, really rough ground, and through to like absolute like carbon slippers. And I wouldn't wear those either for something like this. The vibrations through the ground can be, so harsh on your feet. I'd be running something, in the middle, not super stiff, obviously not a trail shoe, but something that's got a bit of cushioning. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
I know it was a question about pedals, but it's just worth thinking about.
You're totally on point there, because even getting off and trying to do things in a road shoe on a gravel, or even just walking around, it's one less thing to worry about. And if you have got to walk a little bit, I wouldn't like to be scuffing up my road cycling shoes, that's for sure.
On the pure pedal side, the cheapest Shimano SPDs are so cheap as well that you're really not risking a whole lot of outlay to try them out.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely bomb-proof and really simple to set up. Plenty of float in there and everything. So it's they're a really easy go-to. Another question here regarding so what considerations other than battery life would you give to lights? Interesting question. So maybe we're thinking about power banks and things like that, but we'll obviously have in some of the feed areas, we'll have a chance for you to charge stuff. Obviously, depending on the power of your light, that's going to take maybe longer than 15 minutes, more than likely. But what would you guys usually carry to, consider the battery life for stuff like that? For obviously your head units and your navigation and your lights.
And always carry at least one spare light. So you might have something on your handlebars, but then if you are in the night, simple things like, you try repairing, if you have a mechanical, you try breaking a chain, for example, when you've got the light on your handlebars and you can't see what's happening. So I'd always have a headlight for riding, for those kinds of situations. But then also on, if you're really unlucky and you crash and you smash your handlebar light, that can be, I've done stuff like that before. It can be quite scary. So, I always have a light as a get out of jail thing, even if it's something just like a small Petzl type thing. You've got a light if something goes wrong with your main light. And, I always carry a second light.
Any recommendations on battery packs, like kinds of battery packs, how big the battery pack should be, and obviously lights as well, they vary as well. So
it just depends. It's practice. Sorry, it's practice, isn't it?
Yeah.
I get to know your kit. Like I use exposure lights, and they're so reliable. They've got huge run time, and I've got a lot of confidence in them. So, and I know how long they're going to last. But I'll still always carry a second light, for sure.
I was going to say, if in doubt, get the brightest light you possibly can do.
Yeah.
Not just because you get the brighter light, but generally the brighter the light, you can stop it down a level or two, and you get longer battery life out of it as well. I don't think I've ever been on a ride where I've thought, this is a bit too much light. I can't.
The difference
the
in
more
weight,
you can see, the better. Yeah.
The difference in weight's so insignificant, isn't it? Between like just taking the exposure from like a Toro to a Max D or a 6-pack, it's not that much, but it gives you that security having a slightly bigger light.
Yeah. Okay, next question we've got here from Innes. Should I carry 2 750s or 500 balls as well as a backpack, which is a 2 to 3 litre ladder?
Wow. I think it. I mean, first of all, it depends entirely on the temperature, probably, and the individual. I'm a bit camel-like, so I would probably carry just 2 bottles and not really worry about anything else. But also, I've got friends who would need the biggest bottles and a full bladder over the same course. But I think it's you do you work out what you need to drink per hour given certain conditions, and then calculate how far it is between the feeds and when you can fill up, and kind of make a judgment call on that with a little bit of spare as well.
Can I just give? Sorry, Malvin.
Yeah, I just to build on that, Tom. In addition to the feed zones, we are looking at putting at least 2 other water stashes out there for bailout. And prior to the event, we will make people aware as to where they are. So that again can factor into the amount that you set off with or choose to carry at any one point.
Can I just give a little a trick that I do on these ones where it's like you want to keep moving as much as possible. I'd start off with a bladder. I like to use carbohydrate drinks, so I'd have that in my bladder, and I'd have the 2 bottles as well, with the powder in ready. Empty bottles, but just with the powder. And then you get to that first feed station, fill up with water, stick them on, and you go. And you're not faffing on with filling your bottles with powder and all that kind of stuff. It's quick.
Okay, so final question, I think we'll go with. Do I need to bring a tent/bivvy and sleeping bag? Tom?
It's I would say no. Obviously, no, you don't need to at all. I think it depends on what you need to know what your average speed is going to be. If you're going to be averaging 15 kilometers an hour, let's bet you're not going to be having an 8-hour sleep in the middle of the night, are you? Yeah. And I think it's for me, I treat it as I'm entering a race, so I want to be riding my bike for as much time as possible. I think given what's great with the bag drops is you can have a little sleeping bag stashed away in there. So if things are not going well, if you're just exhausted, then you can have a sleep there. I think the flip side to that is, probably don't bring a full tent, bivvy and sleeping bag. No. But I've got a little tinfoil bivvy bag, like an emergency blanket thing, which packs away to, it's like half the size. The mini cans of Coke, it packs down to about that size. And it's so small to bring. And that I never intend to use it, and I've probably only ever used it once or twice during an event. But when I have had it, it's been worth its weight in gold to just have there. So have a little eye on the worst case scenario, but also plan for this particular event, plan for not carrying that full sleeping kit.
Yeah. Great advice. Okay, folks, I think that will do us for the Q&A. Just a final message to say a massive thank you for coming on to this webinar and basically trying to squeeze as much information out of the crew on screen as possible. Obviously, if you're feeling inspired about this, get onto www.grallochgravel.com/ultra to find out more and get their entry in there. There is an early bird entry until Monday, February the 2nd, 2026. And that will stop at midnight. From then, prices will go up. If you have enjoyed this webinar, make sure you like the video, subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff, and obviously keep an eye on that subscription and making sure that you can be up to date with everything from Red On Sports and the Gralloch Ultra. But thanks once again to the panel, Zoe, Malcolm, Tom, and Rich. I've been Jimmy Mack. Thanks very much, and we look forward to seeing you guys in May. Take care.